going on. Oh, God.
February 26, 2012. 17-year-old Trayvon Martin shot and killed. Now George Zimmerman, the man accused of pulling the trigger, is heading to trial, charged with murder.
I felt his arm going down to my side, and I grabbed it, and I just grabbed my firearm and I shot him one time.
You watch the case unfold right here on HLN. The grieving parents.
I'm hoping that one day, he's gonna walk through the door, and this is gonna be a nightmare.
The protests. And the arrest.
George Zimmerman is in custody of law enforcement.
And now, George Zimmerman, the police tapes. Welcome to an Evening Express special, George Zimmerman, the police tapes. I'm Ryan Smith, and over the next hour, we're going to take you through a case that captured the nature's attention, the death of Trayvon Martin. We'll look into what happened in the 48 hours after he was killed, and we'll show you what law enforcement knew in the days before Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman became household names. But I want to begin with Zimmerman's computer voice stress analysis. It's a high-tech polygraph test that picks up clues from Zimmerman's speech, and it was recorded the day after the shooting. Take a look.
So, start from the beginning. About what time yesterday?
About 7 p.m. I left my house to go to the grocery store, buy my groceries for the week.
What store did you go to?
Target.
Mm-hmm.
And I was leaving my neighborhood when I saw this guy walking slowly in front of a house, looking towards the house. And I knew he didn't live there, so it made me a little suspicious. And then he kept staring around him, at me, and behind. And it arose my suspicion. And then it was raining, and he didn't look like he was in a rush to get out of the rain. He didn't look like he was hardcore physical, like exercising, that he was, running in the rain. He just looked out of place from what they've taught us in the neighborhood watch. So I drove past him and I went to the clubhouse and I called the non-emergency line.
Mm-hmm.
As I was on the phone with the non-emergency line, he walked past my car and I lost visual contact of him. The operator asked me if I could get to somewhere where I could see, or at least give him a direction of where he was headed.
Mm-hmm.
I said yes, so I pulled out and I drove adjacent to the clubhouse. And I was unfamiliar with the street name. The operator asked me what street I was on. And it's not the street that I live on. It's a side street that cuts through the neighborhood. And I told them I didn't know. And they said, we need to know when I was at the clubhouse. I gave them the clubhouse address. And they're like, we need to know what house you're in front of. And I said, listen, if you come to the clubhouse, you can go straight left and you'll see me there. At this point, the guy walked around my car. He had his hand in his waistband. I didn't hear if he said anything. My windows were up, and it was raining, and I was on the phone with the non-emergency dispatcher. And then he disappeared back through a cut-through between the houses. While he was doing that, the operator asked me, they said, we need to know what exact address you're at. And all the houses I was next to, it was the back of the houses, and they're townhouses, so I didn't know the address. And they said, we need to know what street you're on or what address you're at. I think in the heat of the moment, I might have given them my street address. And they said, is that your home address or where you're at now? And I said, that's my home address. And I got out of my car to look for a street sign so that I could at least tell them what street I was on.
So George Zimmerman is following Trayvon Martin, and Zimmerman's lost sight of him. But we know the two came face to face one last time. The question is how? Zimmerman explains that next. We're taking you inside George Zimmerman's high-tech polygraph test that police gave him the day after he shot and killed Trayvon Martin. And he's describing his phone call with police after he lost sight of Martin. But then both come face to face one last time. Take a listen.
There was no street sign, and I couldn't make out the house in front of me because there was a big pickup truck there. So I knew if I saw him walk through the cut-through and then make a right behind other houses. I knew if I went straight and I didn't cut through where he went, that was the street that I lived on, Retrieve Circle. And I knew if I got to that street, I could tell them the exact house number and the street that I was at. So as I walked through, I looked to my right where he had gone through. The operator said, "Are you following him?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "We don't need you to do that." And I said, "Okay." And I walked through to the other end of the street to give him the address. And as I was doing that, I said, "He's not here anymore, he's gone." And they said, "You don't see him?" And I said, "No, he's gone." And they said, "Do you still want us?" And by this time I'd gone to Retrieve Circle. And they said, "Do you still want us to send a police officer out?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, where do you want the officer to meet you at?" And I said, "Just tell them to go to the clubhouse, make a left." I didn't give them a description of my car. And I said, "I'll meet them back at my car." So I walked through again, and as I was about halfway through, he appeared out of nowhere.
You still on the phone?
No, I hung up. They said, "We have an officer en route." And I said, "Okay, thanks." After he asked me if I wanted an officer there, they said, "We have an officer en route." I told them to meet me at my car, and I hung up. And I put my phone away. And when I got about halfway to my car from the street, again, behind the houses in a dark area, I heard him say, "You got a problem?" And I turned around and I saw him, and I went to go for my phone and call 911 instead of non-emergency this time. But I guess I didn't have my phone in the pocket that I thought I had it in. I had it in my jacket pocket, and I reached for my pocket, and I was looking for my phone, and he just punched me in the nose. And I fell backwards to the side. Somehow I ended up on my back. He ended up on top of me, and he just kept punching my face and my head, and I was screaming for help. And he told me, "Shut the f*** up." And I kept yelling for help, and I got a little bit of leverage, and I started to sit up, and then he took my head and slammed it into the concrete several times, and each time I felt like my head was going to explode more than the last. I felt like I was going to lose consciousness, and I started screaming for help. And he covered my nose with one hand and my mouth with the other one, and he told me, "Shut the f*** up." And I couldn't breathe, I was suffocating. And all I could think about was I didn't want him to keep slamming my head on the concrete. So I kind of shifted and squirmed my way out, not out from under him, but like to where, because the concrete was it was a sidewalk, and it felt like he only had my head on maybe a quarter of the concrete, and I could shift my way out and get onto the grass, where if he was slamming my head, it would just hit the grass and not the concrete. But when I shifted, my jacket came up and my shirt came up and exposed my firearm. And that's when he said, he sat up and looked and said, "You're gonna die tonight, motherfucker." And I felt him take one hand off my mouth and slide it down my chest. And I just pinched his arm, and I grabbed my gun and I aimed it at him and fired one shot.
One shot to the chest. That's how Trayvon Martin was killed. Now a neighbor comes outside to see what's going on. So after the break, Zimmerman picks up the story from there. George Zimmerman just explained how he killed Trayvon Martin, and he's taking a computer voice stress analysis test. Now, after Zimmerman says he shot Martin, a neighbor and police arrived. So Zimmerman explains what happens next.
He kind of sat back and said, "You got me," or you got me, you got it, something like that. And I thought he was saying that he heard the shot and that he was giving up. So I pushed him off me, and I don't remember if I pushed him off me or I pushed him back. Either way, I ended up on top of him, straddling him. He was up face down. And when he was hitting me in the face and the head, I felt like he was hitting me with something in his hands. So I thought he had a weapon, and I grabbed his hands and I pushed them away from his body. And I said, "Stop." I said, "Stop, just don't move." Mm-hmm. And he was saying something like, and cursing. I said, "Stop, don't move." And then somebody came, and they had a flashlight, and I thought it was a cop, and I said, I still had my gun in my hand as I was holding his hand out. And I said, "Are you a cop?" And he said, "No." And he said, "I'll call them." And I said, "I don't need you to call them. I already called them. They're on their way. I need you to help me restrain this guy." And he said, "I'm calling the police. I'm already on the phone with them." And I got up off of him because he stopped struggling. And I thought he just stopped struggling. And then I holstered my weapon. I saw another flashlight, and I said, "Are you the police?" Because I had blood all over my face and my eyes, and the flashlight, it was dark where I was, so the flashlight was really bright. And I said, "Are you the police?" And he said, "Who shot him?" And I said, "I did." And I put my hands above my head like that, and I don't remember if he told me to turn my back to him and walk back towards him, but I turned my back to him, and I said, "I did." And I raised my jacket, and I said, "My gun's right there." I think I told him a few times, "My gun's right there. It's right there." And he said, "I know where it is. Just keep your hands on your head. Don't move." I said, "Can you just take my gun?" And he said, "I'm taking care of it. Just don't move." So I stopped. He handcuffed me. He took my hands down and handcuffed me. Oh, that's when he brought my hands down. I said, "My gun's right there on my right side," because I didn't want him to think that, I was going to grab for it or something. So he put my hands behind my back, handcuffed me, and then he took my gun. And I think it was the same officer that took me to his car. And paramedics got there. They went to check on him first, and then they came over and poured peroxide on my head, on the back of my head, felt my nose, and they told, I don't remember if it was a police officer or another EMS guy. They said his nose is broken and he's going to need probably two stitches on the back of his head. And they said, well, we're going to take him down for questioning. And somebody said, should we take him to questioning or CFR first? And they said, no, we'll take him to the station first. And I didn't realize at the time CFR was Central Florida Regional, the hospital, and I just got in the back of the car and they brought me here.
And you're watching his high-tech polygraph test. He just finished describing the last moments of Trayvon Martin's life, but there may be another witness. Zimmerman says there was a neighbor looking out the window. So what did that person see? Take a look.
Were you on the phone at the time when he was beating you?
No.
Okay, so there was no communication between you and the call center at that point?
No. I'm sorry. There was a guy that I couldn't really see because, like I said, there was blood in my eyes, and I saw somebody looking out through the sliding glass door, and I said, help me, help me. And I think he said, I'm calling 911. But the guy was beating me in the head and the face, but he might have been
So
on
there was
the
a
phone.
possible bystander there?
Yes.
Okay.
He might have been on the phone with 911, I don't know. But I was not communicating with the police at that time.
Okay, after he disappeared in through the cut-through. Okay, he turned to the right, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At that time you hung up, right around that time you hung up with dispatch.
Shortly after, yes, sir.
Yeah. And then you were walking there, and you're walking back through, but you walked through where he disappeared, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next thing you know, he comes out of nowhere.
Yes, sir.
He says, you got a problem?
Yes, sir.
Or something along that line. Okay. At that point, you went for your phone,
Yes, sir.
and he punched you in the face.
I answered him. I said, no, I don't have a problem.
Okay.
And that's when I went for my phone and he punched me in the face.
And then you guys exchanged some punches.
I didn't hit him at all. I mean, I was trying to defend myself, but every time he punched me in the nose, it felt like my head was going to explode.
Okay. Was it at that time you pulled out your gun?
No.
No. At any time prior to, did you pull out your gun?
No.
Okay. So this possible bystander that you told to call 911 or help, he should be able to tell us that your gun was still in your holster.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Or didn't see the gun.
Correct.
Okay. Because if it's in your holster, you probably wouldn't see it.
No, sir. I mean, as we were wrestling, like I said, my jacket came up.
I understand that.
He saw it.
But if he was to look out and look at you, you wouldn't have been in your hand or anything like that. Okay. And you don't know this guy?
No.
Okay. Other than, why'd you try to maintain such close proximity to him?
To tell the police what direction he was headed in.
Did you feel that you put yourself in danger?
No, because where I was parked, my headlights were illuminating,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw him turn down. And by the time I was on the phone with the non-emergency, by the time I got to where he was at, I felt he had already made his way. I've called non-emergency probably a dozen times, and these guys are known just to run. As soon as they get suspicious, they run, and they know the neighborhood back and forth, and they just disappear in between houses within seconds. So I kind of walked, and I looked around the corner, and he was gone. So that's why I told him, non-emergency, he's gone.
George Zimmerman is detailing the last moments of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin's life. And the two had a confrontation, and Zimmerman says he shot Martin in self-defense. Now, as Zimmerman explains what happened that night, he reveals a new detail about the gun. He says he forgot he had it. Listen as Zimmerman lays out that part of the story.
What was this guy wearing?
Gray hoodie, and I don't remember if they were gray pants or like stonewashed denim pants, I think.
Denim pants?
Pardon?
Denim pants?
No, yeah, like denim, but like stonewashed. I think they were light colored. They might have been jeans.
Okay. And he was a black man?
Yes, sir.
About how tall?
5'8", 9. It was 5'11", I'd say. To 6 foot.
Okay. When you're laying on the ground, you're laying on your back, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's when your jacket came up and he saw your gun, right?
Yes, sir.
Your gun on your left side, right side?
My right side.
Okay, so your gun's on your right side. Where were your hands at?
Trying to keep his hands away.
And then what'd you feel next?
His hand slid down my chest. He had one hand on my mouth and one hand on my nose, and he took one off, and that's when he said, "You're gonna die, mother." And I felt his hand going down the side of my chest, and to be honest,
you felt something like this?
Yeah,
okay.
Brushing. And to be honest with you, the whole time I forgot that I had the gun. When he said that I was gonna die, and then I felt him brushing, it automatically clicked that he was going for my gun.
So your hands are up here defending yourself. His hand's going down.
Yes, sir.
Were both your hands on the weapon?
No, sir.
Okay. Where was his hand when you went to retrieve the weapon?
One hand was going towards the gun. He took it off my mouth.
Right.
And I was trying to get his hand. He was suffocating me, so I was trying to get his hands off of my face. So when I felt his hand he let go of my mouth, so I wasn't trying to do anything again with my right hand. So I grabbed my gun, and I don't know if he did at the same time or what the case was, but I got to it first.
Okay. And then how did you come to fire upon him from that position? Because you're laying down like this, okay, on your back, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you just bring it out of the holster and straight up like this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You didn't like try to push it into him or anything? You just fired it from almost like from the hip?
I think I made sure that it wasn't, because my hand was in the way, I made sure it was past my hand, because his other hand was still on my face.
Okay.
So I made sure it was
he that far away, or he's right up on top of you?
He was like putting all his weight on my nose and my mouth,
Okay.
trying to suffocate me.
Uh-huh.
So he was like creating a crevice with his body,
Uh-huh.
and then he like, when he slid to go for my gun.
Did he go for your gun with his left hand or your right hand?
I don't recall. I don't recall
Okay.
which hand he used.
But one of the hands went.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The one that was on your mouth.
That's when it clicked that I had my gun, and when he said,
But the hand that was on your mouth, he went to your
Yes,
gun.
sir.
Okay. Wait, then you got it. And you went out like this?
I think I went far enough to where I could make sure that it was past my other hand and in his general area.
From what you described to me, he's not that far away from you.
No, he's on me.
He's on top of you.
Yes, sir.
Right, so there's not a whole lot of distance between you and him.
Right.
So you can't really extend your arm.
Correct.
Because then you got a gun sticking out. What kind of gun is it?
Kel-Tec 9mm.
Kel-Tec 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's probably only about that long, right?
Shorter.
It's a little tiny gun.
Yes, sir.
But still, I mean, you don't have hardly any play
No, sir.
before that gun's directly into his chest.
Correct. I was on him. I knew I was.
And as soon as the round went off, he stopped attacking you?
He sat back and he said, "You got me," or "You got it," whatever.
Police don't end their investigation there. The next day, Zimmerman takes the detectives back to the crime scene and walks them through everything he says happened the night that he killed Trayvon Martin. Welcome back to an Evening Express special, George Zimmerman, the police tapes. Now, you've heard his high-tech polygraph test. Now see what he shows police when he takes them back to the crime scene 2 days after he shot and killed Trayvon Martin. He starts with where he first spotted Trayvon Martin. Let's roll the tape.
Right here, right in front of this house.
Okay. Right in front of 1460?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what was he was walking in between the buildings, or?
He was walking like in the grassy area, like up towards, kind of between these two poles, and like I said, it was rainy, and he was just leisurely looking at the house, and like I said, I left for the grocery store, and I just felt like something was off about him.
Right.
So I said, and there's been a history of break-ins in that building, and I called previously about this house.
Right.
When the police arrived at this house, when I called the first time, the windows were open and the door was unlocked. And the police came and secured it. So I said, you know what, it's better to just call, and I kept driving. I passed him, and he kept staring at me and staring around, looking around to see who else was. I don't know why he was looking, but
Did he walk off from there, or did he stop there last night?
he stopped, and he like looked around, and that's why that's what threw me off. Was it's raining. I didn't understand why somebody would be just stopping in the rain, especially, you know, it wasn't like he was trying to run to get out of the rain, and I had never seen him before. Didn't look like he was exercising.
Where was he standing at when he stopped?
Right in front of 1460.
On the sidewalk or in the grass?
Yeah, in the grassy area.
Right in the grassy area?
Yes.
Okay. Like about right in front of where the car is?
Yes, sir.
And then
I drove past him.
Okay.
And I went to the clubhouse.
All right.
Up here on the right-hand side.
And parked up there?
Yes, sir.
And what was his, naturally, you're good. Naturally, he left. He caught up to you up here, or?
Yes, I called the non-emergency line, and when I got through, I parked at the clubhouse.
All right.
And they asked me, you know, where I was, and I told them the clubhouse, and I think I gave them the address of the clubhouse.
Where'd you park at?
Right up here next to that green truck. I don't think
right.
that truck was there, but I just pulled up.
Okay.
in there.
So you just pulled in here,
Yes, sir.
and this is where you got out?
No. This is why I just stopped to call, and then he walked past me, and he kept looking at my car, and still looking around at the houses and stuff. So then the dispatcher said, where did he go? What direction did he go in? And I said, I don't know. I lost, because he cut down here and made a right. Because it's Twin Trees Lane. He made a right in there. And they said, well, what direction did he go in? And I said, I don't know. I can't see him.
Okay.
And they said, can you get to somewhere where you can see him? And I said, yeah, I can. So I backed out.
All right.
And I made this right here. And I left here. And I parked right about where that sign is in the yard.
In front of the Ford truck.
Yes, and I saw him standing right about here. And I saw him walking back that way and then cut through the back of the houses. He looked back and he noticed me and he cut back through the houses. I was still on the phone with non-emergency.
Zimmerman lost sight of Trayvon Martin behind a row of homes, but then he says Martin reappeared and approached him. Zimmerman explains that next. George Zimmerman is back at the crime scene with police. He's walking detectives through what he says happened the night he killed Trayvon Martin. And before the break, Zimmerman says he lost sight of Martin behind some homes. But then he says Martin approached him. Listen.
And then he came back and he started walking up towards the grass and then came down and circled my car. And I told the operator that. He was circling my car. I didn't hear if he said anything.
Right.
But he had his hand in his waistband. And I think I told the operator that. And they said, where are you? And I could not remember the name of the street. Because I don't live on this street.
Right.
Retreat View Circle goes in a circle.
Right.
And I said, I don't know. And he goes, we need an address. And I said, I don't know an address. I think I gave them my address. And they said, give us directions to get to you. And I said, if you tell the police to go straight at the clubhouse and make a left, my truck will be there. And again, they asked me where he went, what direction he went in, and I said, I don't know. And then I thought to get out and look for a street sign.
Right.
So I got out of my car and I started walking.
Go ahead.
Oh. I was still on the phone with non-emergency and I started walking
Okay.
down this way. And because I didn't see a street sign here, but I knew if I went straight through that's Retreat View Circle, and I could give him an address because he said, just give me the address of the house you're in front of.
Okay.
And there's no address because this is the back of the houses. So I walked straight through here, and I didn't see him at all. I was walking, and I was still on the phone with me non-emergency.
Okay.
I got to about here, and I had a flashlight with me.
Okay.
The flashlight was dead though, and I looked around and I didn't see anybody, and I told non-emergency, I said, you know what, he's gone, he's not even here.
Right.
So I still thought I could use their address, so I walked all the way through. I actually walked all the way to the street, and I was gonna give them this address, and they said, well, if he's not there, do you still want a police officer? And I said, yes. And they said, do you still want a police officer? And I said, yes. And they said, are you following him? Oh, I'm sorry, back there, they said, are you following him? And I said, yes, because I was, in the area. he said, we don't need you to do that. And I said, okay. So that's when I walked straight through here to get the address so that I could meet the police officer. And then they said, I said, he's not here. They said, do you still want him to come? And I said, yes. And they said, where do you want him to come to? And I said, you know what, just tell him to meet me at my truck next to the clubhouse. If you go straight into the clubhouse and makes a left, I have a Honda Ridgeline, silver Honda Ridgeline is parked right there. I'll meet him right there. So I started walking back. When I got to, I passed here, I looked, I didn't see anything again, and I was walking back to my truck. And then when I got to right about here, he yelled from behind me to the side of me. He said, yo, you got a problem? And I turned around and I said, no, I don't have a problem, man.
Where was he at? About?
He was about there, but he was walking towards me.
So he's coming from this direction here.
Yes, sir. Like I said, I was already past that, so I didn't see exactly where he came from, but he was about where you were.
Okay.
And I said, no, I don't have a problem. And I went to go grab my cell phone, but I left it in a different pocket. And I looked down in my pant pocket, and he said, you got a problem now. And then he was here, and he punched me in the face.
Right here?
Right up around here.
Okay.
To be honest with you,
That's fine.
I don't remember exactly.
That's fine.
I think I stumbled, and I fell down, he pushed me down, somehow he got on top of me.
On the grass or on the cement?
It was more over towards here.
You know, many have questioned the injuries that Zimmerman suffered that night, and you heard him say that Martin punched him in the nose. Well, next, he's going to show police how he got the wounds on the back of his head. George Zimmerman is back at the crime scene, walking police through what he says happened the night that Trayvon Martin was killed. Now, before the break, he told detectives that Trayvon Martin punched him in the nose and that he fell down. He picks up the story from here.
I think I was trying to push him away from me, and then he got on top of me somewhere around here. And that's when I started screaming for help. I started screaming help as loud as I could. And then is when he grabbed me. Oh, I tried to sit up, and that's when he grabbed me by the head and he tried to slam my head down. And
Were you on the cement or you on the...
no, my body was on the grass. My head was on the cement.
You can see the best thing facing this way.
Yes, sir. That's as best as I could feel through my jacket. It was, I felt like my body was on the grass and my head was on the cement, and he just kept slamming and slamming. And I kept yelling, help, 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 as loud as I could. He put his hand on his nose, on my nose, and his other hand on my mouth. He said, shut the fuck up. And then I tried squirming again, because all I could think about was when he was hitting my head against it, felt like my head was going to explode, and I thought I was going to lose consciousness. So I tried to squirm so that I could get, because he only had a small portion of my head on the concrete. So I tried to squirm off the concrete. And when I did that, somebody here opened the door, and I said, help me, help me. And they said, I'll call 911. I said, no, help me. I need help. And I don't know what they did, but that's when my jacket moved up, and I had my firearm on my right side hip. My jacket moved up, and he saw it. I feel like he saw it. He looked at it, and he said, you're gonna die tonight, motherfucker. And he reached for it, but he reached, like I felt his arm going down to my side, and I grabbed it, and I just grabbed my firearm, and I shot him one time.
After you shot him, keep on going, what did he say?
After I shot him, he like sat up.
You're still in this position here, but
Yes, sir.
laying down here. You shot him so he's in the grass.
Yes, sir. He was on top of me like this. I shot him, and I didn't think I hit him because he sat up and he said, "Oh, you got me. You got it. You got me. You got it." Something like that. So I thought he was just saying, "I know you have a gun now. I heard it. I'm giving up." So I don't know if I pushed him off me, he fell off me. Either way, I got on top of him and I pushed his arms apart. And I said,
Try to flip him over.
I don't remember how I got on top of him. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But I got on his back and I moved his arms apart because when he was repeatedly hitting me in the face and the head, I thought he had something in his hands. And so I moved his hands apart.
So you had him face down then?
Yes, face down, and I was on his back. And then somebody came with a flashlight, and I thought it was a police officer. So I said, "Are you the police?" And I still had my hand out, and I told him, I said, "Are you the police? My gun's right here." And he goes, No, I'm not. I'm calling the police." And I said, "Don't call the police. Help me restrain this guy." And he said, "I'm calling the police. I'm calling the police." And I said, "I already called. They're on their way. They're coming. I need your help." And then's when the police officer came around. I saw the police officer. I stood up and I holstered my weapon. And he said, "Who shot him?" And I said, "I did." And I put my hands up. I said, "I did." And I don't know if he told me to. I just automatically turned my back to him. And I lifted my shirt and I said, "My gun's right there." And I told him a few times, I said, "My gun's right there." And he goes, "Okay, I understand. I just need you to keep your hands up." And he put the handcuffs on me, and then he took my firearm from me.
So what really happened the night George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin crossed paths? Only the two of them really know. The rest of us and the jury of Zimmerman's peers will have to rely on these police tapes and the testimony at trial to decide his fate.